Got something new for the home theater. Furman PL-8C. So I recently did my video all about my CyberPower 1500 watt UPS and how much power exactly does it take to use a bunch of home theater gear for different things like watching movies and playing games. And I've been thinking about my power setup quite a bit more going into that video. One of the key things about having the UPS is you don't really want to run high power, high draw current amps on something like a UPS. And I realized that once I got my new Parasounds, or once I got my Parasounds some months ago, and ended up flipping around where the 3 Parasound amps are plugged into the wall. And I'm thinking more and more that I kind of want to get a dedicated 2-channel amp for the living room speakers instead of continuing to use the extra channels off of my A52s, just to separate the zones and the triggering and the control a little bit more. So at some point in time, I probably will introduce a 4th higher current, higher power amp. And I don't want all that stuff plugged into the wall. So I was looking for something. I don't want to spend a bunch of money, wanted to keep it cheap, but I wanted to get those amps on some kind of additional protection and also ideally get them on at least some minor amount of line conditioning, power conditioning. Maybe that makes a difference in the noise floor. I still hear a little bit of noise. If I go up to my speakers around my spaces, I can hear some hiss, and I would really like that to be completely and totally eliminated. So I went searching online looking for a solution, and I found the Furman amongst a plethora of options for surge protection and power conditioning. And again, I don't want a UPS. I don't need a whole bunch of like really advanced voltage regulation. Just something simple, inexpensive to give that protection. And we'll see, maybe, just maybe, do a little bit of line conditioning, clean a little bit of things up, isolate some elements a bit from each other, and if we get a noise floor reduction, a little reduction in the hiss, that would be awesome. So Furman makes a bunch of these things, and I should say this is not sponsored. I bought this thing with my own money. The PL-8C is one of a series of a couple different variations of this. This is the simplest one, the cheapest one. The more involved ones have some meters. The highest one has like a digital or a 7-segment style display. This doesn't have any of that. I don't feel I needed any of the meters. I just wanted the simplest, cheapest one. So on Amazon, this thing's a little over like 200 bucks. At the time that I went to order it, got lucky, did a general Google search for the brand and the model, and wouldn't you know, B&H Photo Video was offering it for $150. Lightning Strike snatched that up. So yeah, for 150 bucks to protect close to $10,000 of amplifiers and any future amplifier purchases I make, that's pretty easy money, or pretty easy decision. So there's a couple other specific things that I liked about this, particular to my setup. One of them, the idea that it's basically a 2-bank device. So bank 1 has 3 plugs, bank 2 has 5 plugs. And the reason they do the separation is specifically if you have things that are like wall warts, you put them on the spaced plugs, and if you have kind of regular plugs, you put them on the 5s. But 2 banks. 2 banks is awesome for my setup. I've got my theater zone with, of course, the 3 Parasound amplifiers. I also have the living room zone, which right now has a couple of Triad 300 watt Class Ds that I am running off the UPS for the moment, but I think I'm going to move them to this. I think it's just good practice to not run your amplifiers on the UPS, even though I did kind of show in my prior video that I have the headroom. The UPS has the headroom to spare, but a UPS I think still has possible logistics that it could still limit maybe some of the instantaneous power draw that an amplifier might want to pull. So I'm really going to treat this as my complete amplifier power interface, and then have everything else basically in the system there run off of the UPS. And so 2 banks I can separate, and they're isolated from each other. So I can have the living room amps on one bank, I can have the home theater amps on another bank. That's pretty cool, I think. And the other thing, just for me personally here in this room, that I was really drawn to is having a front plug accessible on my rack. I'm in here tinkering a bunch, obviously, as you might watch the channel, but this is the space where I tend to do a lot of stuff. I'm messing around in my rack. I'm playing around with equipment. If I'm doing like a project thing in the household, I might come to this spot and use the table here in our storage room that I've got the camera tripod sitting on right now. And a lot of times I might need to just plug a disparate thing in just to use it. And so I've got plugs in here, like down back behind these bins. Of course, there's more plugs accessible on the back of the rack. And just outside the door here, I've got a plug on the wall. But using all of those is really kind of a pain. I've got to go into another bin in most cases and like pull out an extension cord or whatever. So having a front plug right here on my rack on the bottom, I can plug anything in, use it, and then unplug it. That's just nice, sweet convenience. So a lot of benefits here for 150 bucks. Again, this thing was pretty much a no-brainer. We're gonna go ahead and put it in. I want to do a little bit of a listening test with regards to the noise floor of the speakers, kind of before and after. Hopefully getting lucky, and it would be awesome. It would be amazingly awesome to just plug this thing in and magically put my ear next to all my speakers and not hear a single thing. So there's the view from the front, tucked up nice and snug against that drawer, sitting above the CyberPower, powered on, protection's on, everything looking good. The lights are pretty neat. So these lights, they come out, there's a switch on the back, and then you tap in this button and then you can dim them brighter or lower. You can't flip them upside down to shine up, but I guess it's more of a pro audio thing if you had this in a rack or moving it around. I don't know, but I'll probably never use them. They're just a feature. So hopefully this is visible. I've got the Furman sitting on the UPS. Wow, looks like I need to dust that. I got the cables from the Furman and the UPS kind of running together, switching over to using like figure 8 style cord bindings for power instead of the circles. And then we come along until both of these are plugged into the wall. And the amplifiers now, there's an A52, another A52, and the A31. Those cables kind of come across, tied up, they loop together, and then they loop into all of their own figure 8s. All of those amps plugged into bank 1, bank 2 open for future changes coming to the rack and the amplification setup. All right, so final verdict. Everything plugged in, the Parasounds running off bank 1 of the Furman, turned on the AVM70, went into the room. Is the audible noise coming out of the speaker gone? No, I think it's actually pretty much the same. It's hard to measure with the decibel meter. I did try to do a measure of like the noise floor of the room without the amplifiers on at all, with them on before the Furman, with them on after the Furman. With the Furman, before and after is basically negligible. And actually the noise isn't really very audible from the listening position. Anyway, you kind of got to get closer to the speakers. In any case, I didn't get that benefit. Kind of a bummer. But for 150 bucks, my cable management, my power management, my routing, some extra protection, having the plug on the front, and the improvements and usability improvements, I guess you could say, to the rack, being able to plug the other amplifiers in a future one maybe into the separate bank, give me all my plug needs because I only have 4 plugs coming off the wall. It works out, but didn't get the benefit. I'll have to check as well whether I hear any difference in the noise floor or the hissing noise of the speakers in the living room. I wouldn't expect to, given that it didn't affect the theater at all, and they're on basically channels of the same Parasound A52s. Getting more and more intrigued, I have to say, about something like a Purify Class D, Apollon Audio, or one of those companies. The Parasounds I think were better than the Emotivas that I had a long while back or some months back in terms of audible hiss and noise, but they're not silent. Or my system, these amps in my room with my cabling and all of that isn't silent. And I really would like to have a no noise speaker configuration. If you have any suggestions, comments, feedback, questions, any of that about this, are you using something else? Do you have another relatively inexpensive line conditioner protector that you're using for your amplifiers that did remove kind of audible hiss and audible noise from your speakers? If so, sound off in the comments. Let me know. So thanks so much for watching. Please like, please subscribe, do all the regular YouTube stuff. Check out some ways to support the channel in the description below. Amazon affiliate links, channel membership, merchandise, and all of that. Thanks for watching. Coming back for more home theater discussion and fun.